What if you could lead more effectively and go home on time? Welcome to the Lightbulb. I'm Zoe Thompson, leadership and performance coach, and each week I bring you 3 practical insights from my work helping impact-driven leaders transform from reactive to intentional leadership so they can finish work on time and take guilt-free time off, creating success that feels as good as it looks. Let's jump in. Episode 14. And for those eagle-eyed of you out there, you might have spotted that we didn't put an episode out last week. The royal we of me, myself and I, last week had a lot of travel, a lot of moving around. And as a result, not so many one-to-one clients, although I did have quite a few corporate workshops in there. So the light bulbs for this episode come from a combination of the last 2 weeks, one-to-one sessions, client workshops, corporate workshops, and it's been an interesting couple of weeks. January, wow, we're now in the final week, which is great news. We're getting there. We are nearly into February. I've been sending out planning support, reflection support to the community and my clients this week to help them to reflect on January and move into February. So we are nearly there. We're nearly out of January, into February, a little bit closer to spring. I'm just trying to stay positive with it all. Let's get into the light bulb moments for those last couple of weeks. So first one, I did a workshop for my clients and community. I do one every month. They tend to ask me what they need help and support with, and then I'll shape a workshop around those topics. And something that is coming up a lot at the moment is managing multi-generational teams and how to lead a very diverse team with such a wide range of ages and different life and world viewpoints and perspectives. So I put the workshop together, had real fun doing the research. I listened to a couple of podcasts, had a look at different articles, pinned a few books to start reading. And it's a really interesting topic. And if you're in leadership and you have a multi-generational team, then this is definitely worth exploring. It does really reflect on what 2026 and leadership is going to be about. Not necessarily the leading of multi-generational teams, but the approach of leadership this year. Very much human-centered, very much impact-led. And I think we're going to see a lot of need for flexibility and empathy and really recognizing that whilst we might have a team, it's a team of collective individuals, and each of those individuals need to be led in a different way. Now, that's not going to be news for some of you. For some of you, that is already how you are leading. For others, we're going to need to see an increase in flexibility, an increase in communication, and two-way conversations. Leadership is changing. It is evolving, and it's great to be able to work with leaders through this, either through the client sessions or through the workshops. It's definitely something for those of you in leadership, you will want to explore a little bit more. So what did I talk about in the workshop? Talked about leading multi-generational teams. So from baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, all on the same team, but have different preferences for communication styles, different expectations around how they like feedback, different views on flexibility, and leaders are exhausting themselves trying to shapeshift, for want of a better expression, for everyone individually. So we know that as leaders, we need to show up to each individual. What came up in different conversations that led into what we focused on for part of the workshop is the assumptions that we make based on age. There's a lot of talk out there about Gen Zers. Gen Zers need this. Gen Zers want this. Gen Zers expect this. And baby boomers want this, expect this, and see things very differently. And there are definitely traits. There are definitely areas where there are some shared traits. We don't want to assume that because somebody is of a particular age that they have a particular way of thinking, a particular communication style, and a different character. We need to still approach every individual as an individual and not trying to tie ourselves in knots, trying to adapt to what we think people need, but have those conversations and understand, how do you like to be led? Be really okay with asking a very open question. Ask them about their feedback preferences. Ask them about their preferred communication styles. Do they prefer an email, or would they rather have a phone call, or are they quite happy with a quick DM? Do they want conversations around these messages, or do they prefer more direct messaging? Ask them about the level of autonomy that is comfortable for them versus the level of guidance that they would like. Ask them what flexibility means to them specifically, especially when you're talking about remote working and is a better option for them that still meets the demands of the business. Ask them. Ask that individual. Don't assume that because they are a certain age or they have a certain family dynamic that you know what is best for them. And then it takes away the guesswork. It takes away the multiple decision making and getting it wrong. Just ask them the open question. Include it in your one-to-ones. How do you like to be led? How do you like to be communicated with? How would you like your feedback? How often would you like that feedback? How much support and check-in would you like from me? Just really reflect on where you might be assuming about what your team wants and how they like to be led. When was the last time you actually asked them? So this week, if you can have one conversation and you've got one one-to-one or one supervision session, start to include the question, how do you like to be led? What can I do differently to be a better manager for you? It's a huge topic, and we did an hour with the workshop. I think we will certainly be pulling some of those themes out to cover in future months. As I said, this is a workshop that I run every month for people that are working with me one-to-one and those in the community. If you want to find out more about the community or working with me, just reach out, ask me that question, and I will be happy to share some information with you. It's also on the website, zoethompson.uk. But the community, low level, low investment, high support, and is there for those of you in leadership who are looking for some additional support and a safe space to have these conversations and learn and implement. Okay, Lightbulb 2, structure. Structure and consistency and boundaries. So January, we know lots of people are having conversations about new ways of working, how they want to show up this year, how they want to show up differently. I've had lots of conversations with people struggling with the same thing. They know what they need to be doing and they are struggling to make it happen, or they're struggling to make it happen consistently. One of the most common conversations that comes up is finishing late, working in the evenings, going home on time, but then logging back onto your phone or your laptop and trying to pick off a little bit more work. And for a lot of people, they have loose boundaries. They don't have clear boundaries. They have loose boundaries. So it makes it very easy for you to go back on that or flex that. Now, what then happens when we work in the evenings, we know that it means that we don't wind down. Our brains don't switch off. And so when it's time to come to bed, we're often going to bed later. We're not getting as much sleep, or we're not getting a quality of sleep, which then means we're tired. We're emotional. Our stress tolerances, that window is a lot smaller, and it impacts how we show up. So it has this huge knock-on effect, and not just in our mood, but in our level of effectiveness. So despite us working longer hours, we're not being effective in the hours that we've got. So we're then extending those hours again, and it's a vicious circle. We need to make sure that we are very clear in the hours that we are working, that we communicate the hours that we are working, and that when we have finished for the day, at the time that we said we were going to finish, that we log off, we step away, and we go home, and we rest, and we take that downtime, and then we can show up the next day. We are more likely to be more efficient, we are more likely to be more effective, and we are more likely to make best use of the time that we've got, because we will prioritize better. Because we're not sitting there first thing in the morning and thinking, well, that's okay, I don't need to finish till 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock tonight. We're thinking, I need to finish at 5, so what absolutely has to be done. And then we delete, we delay, we delegate much more efficiently and effectively. We show up in a much better way, and we make really good use of the time that we've got. So we need a structure around the boundaries that we are setting. We can't just set the boundaries and communicate the boundaries unless we have a structure in place that supports how we want to show up. So I want you to think about where you have been setting boundaries for this year, because I know a lot of you would have been thinking about this at the beginning of the year. And I want you to think about what structure you have in place to make sure that that happens. So you will have heard me talk about on a Monday, I finish, log off, I go to a spin class, and then I will quite often go to the cinema. That gives me a whole evening of not being able to think about work or do any work. So I know I have at least one evening a week where I am forcing a change of headspace. Now, I try and do that over the other days as well, but it's much easier, isn't it, when you're sitting at home or watching TV or, I like to read because that helps my mind to wander a lot less. Again, it's structure. It's understanding what works for me. What do I need to do differently to protect what is behind that boundary wall? Your brain will default to what's familiar. So when you're tired, you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you will revert to the old patterns, and structure takes away that decision. So if you are very clear on what your boundaries are, I want you to make sure that you are creating a structure that protects that boundary. Think of your structure as the boundary wall. What is it that you are asking and wanting to protect and preserve, and you are asking to be respected? So think about one of those boundaries. Going home on time or going home when you said you would and not logging back on again is probably one of the most common ones. That's why you see it a lot in my messaging and what we talk about. So I want you to think about, why is that important? Why is it important for you to go home on time? Why is it important for you to protect and preserve that? Why are you asking for that to be respected? That's the first thing. Get really, really clear on that first. Then work out the structure in your week that will help to protect that. How do you help yourself to go home on time when you said you would and not log back on in the evenings? What can you put in place that helps to protect that decision? And the third light bulb, AI. How fascinating is this as a topic, especially when we're talking about leadership? Now, one of the really interesting things with AI is that most of us have been learning to use it to help us to work more efficiently and more effectively, which is great. It's a fantastic tool for that. And actually, one of the things that I have sent out to the community in the last day is a list of reflection questions to help them to reflect back on January, and then a list of questions to help them to get very clear on their priorities and what they want to achieve in February. What I've included with that is a prompt that they can copy and paste into their AI tool of their choosing that will then help them to plan out February. So they will have clarity on what their priorities are, what their ascend tasks are going to be, and then that AI prompt is going to help them to create a list of tasks and activities that need to be done. It will have milestones and deadlines planned into it, and it's going to help them to very quickly, very efficiently plan out their month so that they can show up, get the work done that helps their area of the business or their business to grow and evolve. So we know that AI is great to help us to work more quickly, more efficiently. How are you using it to lead better? Because the question that a lot of people are asking is, how can AI help me work faster? Working faster just means that you're getting more done, you're more productive in the same hours. Potentially, the overwhelm is still there, just at a higher speed. So I want you to think about how you can use AI to lead better. Now, one of my clients has brought in an AI system to help their team focus on high value work instead of answering all of their calls. So they've brought in a system that answers the calls for the business, and that helps create capacity for their team so they can show up and do the high value work, their ascend tasks, without being distracted with answering the calls when it rings and having their attention diverted. So that's where intentional leadership comes in. it's not just thinking about your people and the way that your people work. It's thinking about systems and processes that will also help you to be more effective and more efficient. How do you step back and think about how you can use technology to change how you lead, not just the efficiency and speed of work? So we know AI can handle routines, repetitive tasks. It frees you up from that regular, very repetitive decision-making and thinking. We need to be very intentional about what we delegate and what we protect, and where we might be able to use technology to work quicker and more effectively so that we can lead better. So if you think about your own day-to-day tasks and the way that you show up in the hours that you're working, what could you use AI for, or a system or a process that would automate or delegate the things that you do on a repetitive basis? And how can that free you up to do the strategic work that you need to do to support your teams, or free you up to have those conversations with your team and check in and your one-to-ones and your supervision and all of those things that need to be you? Where do you need to be you in the way that you lead? And what can you outsource to a system or a process, or maybe another individual, to help with them with their development, that allows you to be in the role that you need to be in and performing, behaving in the way that you need to get the best out of your area of the business and the things that you are responsible and accountable for. So think about, what can you delegate? What can you automate that's going to help you to focus your attention where it needs to be for the role that you're in? All right. I would love to hear what you've been implementing, what you're finding you're being more consistent with. Would love to know what you're doing differently as a result. And just choose one action, however small, commit to it, practice showing up with it consistently, make it repetitive. And that's how we just move you away from that overwhelm and reactive leadership into intentional leadership. And I will see you next week for the next episode. And those are your 3 takeaways for this week. Before you go, ask yourself, what's my light bulb moment from this? And now that I know what I know, what will I do differently? Choose one action, however small, and commit to it. That's how overwhelmed and reactive becomes aligned and intentional. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week on the next episode of The Lightbulb.